Hey everybody, it's Beej with Lambda School. We're going to talk a bit more about migrations in Django. If you remember when we first made our project, we had some migrations that were automatically created for us when we generated the project. And after we made our model, we had to make another migration to get that model into the database. If you remember, a migration is a way of translating what we have as a Python class in a model into SQL so that the database can also store exactly that same data. So we're going to take our existing model and we're going to add some new fields to it. And because we have changed the model, we'll need to make a new migration and run that migration. Anytime the model changes, a new migration has to be made. So we're going to add some new fields, we're going to make migrations, and we're going to apply those migrations and see how that works. Okay, the first thing we're going to want to do is pop over into our models.py, because this defines our note model. We're going to add a couple fields to it. Some things that might be useful here would be a time when the note was created and a time when the note was last modified. So I'm going to add a created at field. And of course we have field types in Django for all kinds of stuff, and dates and times are no exception. We can have a date time field. And we're going to specify something here. Auto now add equals true. So what this will do is it will automatically set the value of this field when the note is added to the database. So when we create a new note, this field will automatically get the current time. That's what the add part of auto now add means. Let's put a last modified field in there as well. So date time field again, and this one we're just going to say auto now equals true. So what this will do is when we modify it or when we add it, it will set the value of last modified. So the difference here is auto now add, which only does it when the record is first added to the database, versus auto now, which does it when the record is added or when the record is modified. So we've added these two new fields to our note. So there's a process that happens every time we change the model. We have to first make migrations and then run the migrations. So let's run back out to the shell and let's check out what migrations we have here. So I'm going to run manage.py show migrations and see what we have. We don't have anything for notes yet, but that's because we haven't made the migration. So anytime you change the model, you want to make migrations. Now it'll look for changes in the model and it'll automatically make migrations for you when it can. But here we've done something interesting. It says we're trying to add the field created at with auto now equals true without a default. The database needs something to populate existing rows. We already have two notes in our database, and we're saying we want to add a created at, and we want to add a last modified field. And so it's saying, hey, for those two things you already have in the database, what do you want me to do? I have to put something there. What should I do? And so we have a couple options here. We can, option one, provide a one-off default that will be set on all the existing rows. So those existing two records will get set to that value. Or we can bail out of here and we can add a default field to our model. And adding a default field to the model is totally fine, except we have this weird special case right now where date time fields that have auto now set to true cannot also have a default. So because of that, in this case, we can't add a default value like we've done up here to ID, which has a default in it. We have to actually do the manual one-off in this case. So I'm going to say that. And it's going to say, please enter the default value as valid Python. You put a Python expression in here. But I could just hit return because the default is timezone.now, which is a function that'll return the current time. So you have to think to yourself, is this a sensible option for putting in? I mean, the old records, we don't actually know when they were created because we didn't have a create that field in there at the time. So we might as well set it to timezone now, even though that's not entirely accurate. We have to set it to something, so let's do that. So I've set that default value of timezone now, and it's made a migration for me. So now if I say show migrations, I'm going to see my migrations here. I see down under notes, I have migration number 2 that is unapplied. There's no X in there. So we've made the migrations. To apply the migrations, we have to say manage.py migrate, and this will actually run it. And so the migration is applied. If we say show migrations again, we see there's now an X here, and the migration is applied. So that's good. Let's go ahead and run the server and see what we have in the admin interface for this. So in the admin interface, I've got notes. I'm going to click here and I'm going to see what we have. Well, interestingly, everything still works, but I don't see my additional fields here. The reason for this is that the admin interface isn't going to show the read-only fields by default. So we can add some boilerplate code in our admin file here where we registered that model, and we can register another model here for the note admin that causes it to show the read-only fields. So we can do something like this. I'm going to say read-only fields, and I'm going to add created at and also last modified. So those were the fields that we defined in our model here. And we're saying, hey, these are read-only, but please go ahead and show them. I'm going to register that. And our server should have restarted. It looks like it did because it automatically restarts when we change our code. I'm going to hit reload right here. And now we see our read-only fields of when this note was created, shown here in universal time. And so now if we make a new note, we see there's a created at and a last modified field being shown, but we can't edit those. Those are set by default. If we pop over and see our new note, that's our second note. Here we go. Our new note, we see that it was created at this time, which is 5:15 p.m. my local time. So, as an additional challenge, go ahead and add more fields to your models. Allow one to be blank and give another a default value, maybe with blank equals true or default equals some value. And then make your migrations, and then go ahead and run the migrations. Because one of the fields can't be blank and doesn't have a default, it'll ask you to put a value in there. So go ahead and manually do that. As always, thanks for watching.